Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Nenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Tarati Swam Parantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagratatam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopishva Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatari Shatharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're continuing our discussions on the Upakhyane Upadesh, the stories told by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And the story today is a story of a wealthy landlord who possessed some gold. So he wanted to have a pot made out of this gold. He wanted to make a vessel from the gold. So he brought this lump of gold to the blacksmith, or to the goldsmith, and when he brought the gold, he said, "Please make this in an impure way." And so he said, "Make this into a pot without any alloy, just pure gold pot." So when he brought the gold pot to the goldsmith, the goldsmith said, "Yes, sir." So then the goldsmith, being tempted by how such a large piece of gold this was, he thought maybe he could steal it, but then he was worried that if he stole it, he would be apprehended the uh, by the landlord and put into jail. So then he devised a tricky plan by which, instead of making a gold pot, he would make a stone pot which was gold plated. So then he made this, and then he brought it to the landholder, and the landholder said, "What is this? This is a stone pot." And then the goldsmith said, "It's a golden stone pot." So the story which is extracted from this by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is very instructive, and to kind of illuminate it, I want to bring up another verse from Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Instruction to get a clearer understanding of what's being said here. So in Nectar of Instruction, text 6, it says, "Drister swabhava jaditarva bhupasta doshire, na prakritvam iha bhakta jananasya pashyat, gangam basam nakula bud budapain apankar, brahma dratvam apagachita niradharmai." This verse is explaining how one should perceive a Vaishnava. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee as having a body born in a low family. a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased and infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges water do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, Shuddha Bhakti, the activity of the soul proper, in other words, engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, is performed in a liberated condition. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Mam cha yo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatitya tan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Abhacharini bhakti means unalloyed devotion. A person engaged in devotional service must be free from material motives. In this Krishna consciousness movement, one's consciousness must be changed. If consciousness is aimed toward material enjoyment, it is material consciousness. If it is aimed toward serving Krishna, it is Krishna consciousness. A surrendered soul serves Krishna without material considerations. And then Prabhupada goes on to explain, Krishna's devotee is not subjected to material condition, even though his bodily features may appear materially conditioned. One should therefore not see a pure devotee from a materialistic point of view. Unless one is actually a devotee, he cannot see another devotee perfectly. As explained in the previous verse, there are three types of devotees: Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. The Kanishta Adhikari cannot distinguish between a devotee and a non-devotee. He is simply concerned with worshipping the deity in the temple. A Madhyama Adhikari, however, can distinguish between the devotee and non-devotee, as well as the devotee and the Lord. Thus he treats the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the devotee and the non-devotee, in different ways. And then Prabhupada says, no one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Supreme Lord. What's being explained in this story by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and Srila Prabhupada helps illuminate it in Rupa Goswami's Upadesa Amrita, is that there's no such thing as an Indian Vaishnava, an American Vaishnava, a Satriya Vaishnava, a Sudra Vaishnava, Malaitya Vaishnava. To refer to someone as a Malaitya Vaishnava or an American Vaishnava is similar to saying it's a golden stone pot. Either the pot is gold or the pot is stone. So if someone is functioning on the level of material consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada is saying, then they can be designated according to being a Malaitya, a Sudra, a Satriya, a Brahmana. These distinctions can be made for those who are not existing on the pure devotional standard of life. But if someone is a Vaishnava, 100% engaged in the service of the Lord, Anyabhilashita sunyam, Yana karmani anavritam, adu kalena krishnanu, shilanam bhaktirutamam, which means that due to being fixed in the shilanam, following the instructions of the spiritual master with a loving disposition, a favorable disposition, that person is existing on the pure devotional platform, and the byproduct of that is they engage in that service without any consideration of material upkeep. They engage in that service without any consideration of material comfort, and they're not eager to accumulate knowledge which is unconducive for the development of that pure devotional disposition. Someone who is existing such a state of consciousness, who has come to the plane of engaging in pure devotional service, mamcha yo vibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatitya tan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Even if they have been born in a low body, maybe they've been born in an American body, an Arabic body, whatever it may be, even if they're existing in such a condition where growing up they were engaged in sinful activities, they were engaged in, activities which are unbecoming of a aspiring Vaishnava, such things should be overlooked, as is being said here. Drishter swabhava jaritar vabhupasidoshar. That when one is seeing a Vaishnava, they should overlook the swabhava of a Vaishnava. And they should overlook the vapupasthadoshar, the faults which may appear within the body of a Vaishnava. Sometimes we can see that, devotees may have like some type of material crippling, or they may be in a very sick condition. But one shouldn't think this is a sick devotee, or this is a sick Vaishnava. One should simply see the pure devotional essence of a person, specifically someone who's 100% engaged in the service of the Lord. There may be considerations which are residual from their previous engagement with the modes of material nature, but one should overlook that to accept the essence of that person. This is what's known as being a Saragrahi Vaishnava, which is someone who can capture the essence of a person. But if we develop a materialistic disposition towards a Vaishnava, thinking that this Vaishnava is American, this Vaishnava is Bengali, this Vaishnava is Gujarati, whatever it may be, we actually develop an offensive disposition, because we're not seeing the person according to their devotional stature, but we're seeing that person according to their external material conditioning, which is in the process of becoming completely purified when one is engaging in devotional service. Aparabdam phalampakaham putam bijam phalambukam kramne bana parliyeta Vishnu bhakti ratatmanaha. Someone who's fully engaged in Vishnu bhakti, kramne tana praliyate, step by step, they're becoming purified of their aparabdha karma, which is unfructified reactions to their previous non-devotional sinful activity. Prarabdha karma, which is the reactions which are fructified, specifically means one's swabhava and one's vapu, one's body, which they are currently possessing. The swabhava which one has, the vapu which one has, is the prarabdha karma, which is coming from a previous life and is being manifested now in the life of a devotee. The bijas, the unmanifested material desires, which have yet to, the manifested material desires which are existing within the subtle body, and the kutas, the unmanifested material desires, which are laying dormant in the subtle body of the living entity. All these things are becoming purified through the process of devotional service. So even if one seems to be inclined towards those activities, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, Apichet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sar eva samanvantya samyak bhag vasito hi saha. Even if someone is still inclined to engage in those activities, if even by force of their previous conditioning, even if due to weakness of heart or attraction for that which is temporary, asat trishna, even if those things take place from time to time in the life of devotee and they fall from the path of pure devotion, if their determination is such that they're fixed in the service of the Lord, Krishna promises that in due course of time he'll reform that devotee. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a very illuminating explanation of these verses, that Arjuna is pressing Krishna in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, saying, but this person's engaged in a sinful activity, so is he a Vaishnava to the degree that he's given up those sinful activities? Krishna says, no, he's a Vaishnava on the basis of his determination, even if he's still inclined towards devotional service. And then Arjuna goes, what if he's, killed a Brahmana? What if he's had sex with his guru's wife? What if he's done so many abominable activities? Krishna says that if his determination is fixed in me, you can run to the top of a mountain, banging on a drum, and announce to the entire world that he is my devotee. That should be the conviction of a devotee. That's the vision of which is to be cultivated by ourselves. So we have to overcome this materialistic disposition and this material vision of who devotees are and what they represent, and learn to capture the essence of that person. And when we capture the essence of that person and we begin to appreciate that devotional disposition, our own devotional disposition grows. Atmavan manyatejiga. We see who we are. So we see what we are in others. So if we're catching the pure devotional vibration which exists within people, if we're catching the pure devotional service disposition within people, then that only acts as an impetus for us to make further advancement. Whereas if we view people from a materialistic disposition, considering them, distinguishing them according to, being from a particular background, a particular class, whatever it may be, then we're missing the opportunity to associate with their pure devotional state. It will function on the basis of a material relationship, and functioning on the basis of that material relationship will expose us to prajalpa, which will steal, unwanted talks will steal away our determination in devotional service. If we cultivate spiritual vision, we will cultivate a taste for Krishna Katha, and from that taste for Krishna Katha, deep relationships can develop. Parasparanu Katanam, Bhagavad, Pavanam Bhagavad Yashaha. Matattustir, Mataratir, Matastustir, Mito, Parasparanu Katanam, Pavanam Bhagavad Yashaha. Matastustir, Mataratir, Matastustir. I'm forgetting the last line somehow. Someone knows it here. Satvata, you know it. Kontakarnava, do you know this verse?
I don't recollect, Prabhu. I have heard it from Radhesham Prabhu, but I don't recollect.
Yeah, Parasparanu Katanam Pavanam Bhagavad Yashaha. I'll look it up.
Vishal Prabhu has shared.
Nivritir Mita Atmanaha.
Okay.
Sorry, that was just the last line. Parasparanu Katanam Pavanam Bhagavad Yashaha. Mitoratir Mitastustir Nivritir Mita Atmanaha. One should learn to associate with the devotees by gathering with them to chant the glories of the Lord. This process is most purifying as devotees thus develop their loving friendship. They feel mutual happiness and satisfaction. And then by thus encouraging one another, they're able to give up material sense gratification, which is the cause of all suffering. So when we exist with devotees on their pure devotional disposition, rather than, and we learn to overlook their swabhava, their inborn conditioning, and their vapu, the material body which they've taken birth in. When we learn to associate on that level, then deep loving friendships can develop, and the byproduct of those deep devotional relationships is mutual happiness, satisfaction, and detachment from material sense gratification. And we can see that this was Srila Prabhupada's mood of preaching, that he was, despite the fact that the people who were coming to him their swabhava was completely diametrically opposite to an ideal swabhava for taking up the process of devotional service, and that they were coming from low births, despite all of these things, horrible habits. Srila Prabhupada is able to catch that pure devotional disposition and cultivate that pure devotional service. And from catching that pure devotional disposition and encouraging it, developing it, fanning it, we can see that the byproduct is so many pure devotees manifested. So we should never underestimate the power of bhakti. We should understand that the power of bhakti has the ability to transform the most sinful of men into the most pure-hearted, kind-hearted Vaishnavas. As is said by Queen Kunti, the power of the holy name is such. Ahobata swapatato gariyan yajiva gre bartate nama tubhyam tapus cheja huvushnashnu arya ramanuchur nama grananti ete. That when one chants the holy name with genuine feeling constantly, we're all of us are chanting 16 rounds a day. All of us are making an endeavor to serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and anyone who's functioning on that platform, trying to follow the process of pure devotional service sincerely, it's understood that such people have performed all study of the Vedas. They have bathed in all holy places. They've performed all rituals. They've engaged in all these activities because they've come to the point of understanding that the ultimate dharma for the living entity is the process of chanting the holy names of Krishna. So this is the great mercy which has been given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Chiradadantam Nijagupta Vitam. He is giving that which hasn't been given in a very, very long time to the lowest and most unqualified people. And what is he giving? Nijagupta Vitam, his own confidential treasury of love for Krishna. He's giving that through the chanting of the holy names. So anyone who's taken seriously to that chanting of the holy names, they are to be respected and to be honored, and whatever seeming material disqualifications which they may have should be overlooked for catching that pure devotional disposition. That's a few thoughts on this story. Now we can open it up for discussion. Where is everyone today? It seems like there's very less people. Probably because Konta Karnava's not there to glue them all together.
There's two devotees outside of the vision of the camera.
Oh, okay, I see. I see. But also we get some like Lokaram Bandhu or Loka Bandhu Ram. Sometimes he's there.
Prabhu, I
Hare
had a...
Krishna, Prabhu.
What's that?
Go ahead, Coach Karnava.
Yeah, I was just saying that thank you for sharing the story. Stone, gold coated stone cup. What is that? Gold coated
Gold-plated stone pot.
stone pot. Yeah. So I really like how you connected it with the devotees. That we should not see them from external perspective. They might have so many differences in terms of physical bodily defects or the background. So yeah, we should just, so if I understand it right, it means the stone is a stone, whether it is gold plated stone or whatever. The stone is a stone. So similarly, a Vaishnav is a Vaishnav. Doesn't matter he is a Bengali Vaishnav or American Vaishnav, and at what state of progress they are. If their determination is fixed in serving Krishna, whether they have more defects or less defects, they are still to be respected as Vaishnavas.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you, Prabhu. Sorry, Ek Chakra Pran Prabhu, I cut you off.
I'm really excited that we have Ekachakra Pran Prabhu now because I feel like we're going to have such nice discussions with him in our association.
Thank you, Prabhu. A thought that came to my mind, for instance, when Srila Prabhupada was at the end of his pastimes here, some devotees wanted to take care of his medical issues, which you could say were material, and other devotees may have just seen him overlook those and just wanted to keep it to pure devotion. And we see this also with older devotees happening right now. How do we know how to balance taking care of the physical material considerations versus, as you're describing, overlooking these and just seeing the pure Vaishnava?
Yeah, well, we can see in the example of Ishvara Puri, he was not only caring for the physical body of Madhavendra Puri, but he was nourishing the devotional disposition of Madhavendra Puri. So it's not that Vapu Seva isn't appreciated, and it's not that the body of a Vaishnava isn't worshipable, but the main thing which one appreciates in a Vaishnava is their mood of pure devotion. So if the service which is required is caring for the physical body, then that should be done dutifully. And in the case of Srila Prabhupada, if you look at Gadadhar Pandit after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, the physical symptoms which were manifesting in Gadadhar Pandit due to separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They very much resemble the physical characteristics which Srila Prabhupada was manifesting at the end of his life. And a sickness which is manifesting in the body of the spiritual master shouldn't be seen as an ordinary material sickness. That these things manifest themselves in the body of the spiritual master to give the disciples an opportunity to serve the spiritual master with deeper purity. Now, Prabhupada's disciples at that time, many of them admit that we were so young we couldn't really understand what was going on when Prabhupada was getting ready to leave. I mean, you can imagine they were all pretty much either, I think the oldest devotee at the time may have been like Satsvarup Maharaj, who may have been like his early 30s at most. So you can imagine they're all very young, all very inexperienced, and they're trying their best to care for Srila Prabhupada, but they couldn't really understand what was going on with Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was exhibiting a pastime, as Tamal Krishna Maharaj says. At one point he chastised Srila Prabhupada because Prabhupada wanted to go on Govardhan Parikrama. And the devotees were in so much anxiety about it. And then one time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj just came in and said, Prabhupada, why are you doing this to us? Why are you torturing us like this? And Prabhupada says, so you'll love me more.
Yeah.
So we can't, even in circumstances where the devotee's body is sick, it's very different from, a mother or father who's not a devotee being sick. It's very different. And the devotee, when they're sick, especially in their last days, Krishna is really preparing them for moving on to the next stage of life. Has anyone read this book, Simple for the Simple? Konta Karnava, I think I gave you that in Govardhan this year, right?
Yes, Prabhu, I read it. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that end of that. This book, Simple for the Simple, is about this very simple Mataji named, I think her name was Ranjini.
I don't recollect through the name, but I know she was supposed to die, leave the body very early, but she was sustaining
Yeah,
for a long time, and she was having a lot of realization
yeah.
during this.
So she had been diagnosed with like brain cancer or something like that, very serious thing. And she was supposed to die within 6 months, but her life ended up extending by 2 years. But in those 2 years, she really intensified her practice of Krishna consciousness. If anyone's been to this Bana Bihari temple, this in Humsa Sarovara in Vrindavan, one of the pujaris there, both of the pujaris there know who she was because they're both from Scotland. But the Mataji there, I'm pretty sure she was involved in the caretaking of this Ranjini Mataji. Now, Ranjini Mataji was a very simple-hearted, mother, housewife, wife of a temple president, and she just, did menial services, deity worship. It was always in the background, taking care of the devotees, cooking, making Sankirtan devotees cookies, and all these different, you could say side services, which, she's not a big sannyasi, she's not a big preacher, she's not a temple president, she's not a GBC. She's just a simple devotee, honestly trying to serve. But in the last 2 years of her life, she had a very transcendental transformation where she increased her rounds to 64. She was worshiping many Shalagram Shilas, and Krishna was blessing her with very, very deep realizations. But she was just an ordinary devotee. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is that Krishna is personally taking charge of a devotee's life. And if in the final days that devotee is becoming sick, we shouldn't see it as an ordinary sickness, but it's being directly orchestrated by Krishna for that person to become more surrendered and more devoted to him. So if anyone is able to get this book, Simple for the Simple, Next time you're in Vrindavan, if you go to that Rasa Bihari Lal, they have a few copies there. They also have them at Kumsa Sarovar. It's a very small book, very, very small book. You can read it in like a day. If you ever have like a train ride somewhere or a flight, you can read it in a one flight or one train ride. It's a very easy book to read. And you can see how Krishna reciprocates and is controlling the life of his devotees in order to help them fully realize him. So we should see it in that way, that whatever sickness is going on is facilitating that devotee's progress towards going back to Krishna. And we can be instrumental by being servants towards that process and facilitating whatever needs to go on in order to help Krishna orchestrate his plan. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you so much. I think I'll title my book Complicated for the Complicated. One Prabhu here found it on Amazon, I think. Is that Amazon? Oh, on Rasbihari Lal and Sons. Yeah, he found that it's available. Oh, we have it right here.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
called one that I gave to Kanta Karnava. It's a really great book. If anyone wants to become inspired to see how you don't need to be a big important person to become fully Krishna conscious, this book will really inspire you. You can just be a simple, sincere, serious, strict practitioner, and Krishna will facilitate your progress.
Ratna Ranjani.
Ratna Ranjani. It's a beautiful book, really, really beautiful book. It's an amazing testimony how powerful the process of devotional service is, which has been given by Prabhupada and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, that was an excellent answer. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I would like to ask one question. Prabhu, you had shared about
It's Vishal Prabhu.
Oh, great. Vishal.
Prabhu, earlier you had given a class on who Madhyam Adhikari is and and what are the qualities of one and how we must aspire to be one. I wanted to go deeper into that, and I was listening to Madhvanand Prabhu's series of classes on Kanishta Adhikari and Madhyam Adhikari and so on. So in that, he was mentioning that real Vaishnav friendship comes only on the basis of Krishna Katha and nothing else. So and today you touched upon that a little bit on how we must develop good friendships with other devotees. So I would like to hear a little more on why the basis on Krishna Katha and how we can actually form deep relationships with other devotees. So because BYS is supposed to be a platform for that as well. So I'd like to hear that, Prabhu.
Definitely. Yeah, Krishna Katha is the foundation of our relationships because relationships only work if we're moving towards the same goal. Recently, Ganganath Prabhu, my dear friend Ganganath Prabhu in Los Angeles, was giving a Bhagavatam class, and he was describing the relationship between a husband and wife. And this is something that his grandfather told him, that husband and wife are like eyes. And if the eyes are looking forward, then they can make progress towards the right goal. But if the eyes are looking at each other, then they'll just become confused. So if we're just so absorbed in our own selves and, the needs of ourself and, the need for emotional validation or whatever it may be, then we may miss the essence of what Vaishnava relationships are supposed to be. So Vaishnava relationships are supposed to strengthen our determination to be moving towards Krishna. And if we're just finding nourishment from relationships on the basis of emotional validation or humor or whatever it may be, superficial things, then the relationship may be pleasing materially, but it won't be nourishing spiritually. So to make the reason why we have to have spiritual relationships is because unless we're finding shelter and a higher taste in those spiritual relationships, then we'll have every reason to look for relationships outside of the association of devotees. And what makes relationships between devotees deep is their ability to give satisfaction, their ability to give nourishment, matadratir, matastushtir, nivritir mita atmanaha. That they have to give love for Krishna, that we should be mutually developing our love for Krishna. Mitatushtir, we should be mutually becoming satisfied in the process of devotional service. Nivritir nimitta atmanaha. Nivritir means that we're becoming detached from material sense gratification by being inspired by the association of the devotees. So unless we have those relationships and we're experiencing the taste from those relationships, Vishayavani Vartante Nirashashasadenam Rasovarjam Rasopiyasya Param Drisvani Vartate. Unless we're getting that higher taste, then we'll have every reason for our senses to look for emotionally validating relationships outside of the association of devotees. And you can practically see that those who don't have a taste for Krishna Katha, those who don't have a taste for the holy names, they can be quite indiscriminate in their association. Satsanga tyag a Vaishnavachar, but becoming a Vaishnava means learning to be discriminate in who we associate with, because I Vaishnava mato girnam putam harigatamritam, that hearing from an Vaishnava can have adverse effects on the process of devotional service. So we need to share realizations. We need to share our experiences. We need to be emotionally validated. But that emotional validation should come through our making progress towards loving and serving and surrendering to Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Just a small follow-up. Many of the devotees, they generally have their own reading program and their own hearing. So it becomes a little disconnected in terms of a common Krishna Katha that we can,
Well,
discuss.
what we do in Los Angeles is we do both.
Okay.
We create, because people need time on their own simultaneously, and also people need to kind of connect with something with their own heart and not becoming like so much influenced by the social atmosphere. So what we do in Los Angeles is we create reading groups where the devotees sit in the same place together and they read at the same time, but they're reading their own thing. They're not reading out loud, they're reading quietly. So we have a designated space. It's a very controlled environment where the devotees just sit together and they read quietly. And they're all reading, their own type of thing. But I've noticed in such environments, it's very potent for your focus. You feel more inspired to want to focus. You feel more inspired to want to read, and you feel more inspired to go deeper into it because of the ambiance which is created through that focused study. And then also we have reading groups together where we read Chaitanya Charitamrita on Saturdays. We read Chaitanya Charitamrita because there's so much within Chaitanya Charitamrita. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you have the Bhagavad Gita, you have Srimad Bhagavatam, and you have the practical example of Vaishnava culture and relationships. So it's instructive on very, very, on many, many levels of interaction. So we found that Chaitanya Charitamrita is ideal for bringing devotees together. And then also we discuss Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. We have reading groups like that. So we have 2 reading groups designated for the ashram during the week. And then we also have systems throughout the week where devotees can sit and just read together, whatever own thing that they're doing. But generally you have to make that extra step. You have to kind of communicate to the association that you're in, and you have to make it a standard within, the ashram or the BYS to create atmospheres. It should be scheduled, just like we have a scheduled morning program, scheduled time for japa. It should also be a scheduled time for reading. When we have that scheduled time for reading, then everything becomes very easy to plug into. So we've just started implementing the scheduled readings in LA, just to make time for devotees just to sit and read, because there's a way in which responsibilities and duties can carry us away. But if one of our responsibilities and duties is to make sure we're reading for an hour a day, then it becomes very enlivening. So I would say it's just a matter of communicating amongst the leadership of BYS of how are we going to fit it into our schedule. Does it mean we go out for, 1 or 2 less hours on book distribution? Sometimes it could mean that. It doesn't have to be that. What's important is that we should always see that we ourselves have been recipients of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. So we may be working very hard to go distribute Krishna consciousness, but we should also remember that having come in contact with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement means that we also have to become Krishna conscious. So becoming Krishna conscious means doing Vaishnava Sangha on the basis of Krishna Katha. We have to work hard for the mission, but we simultaneously have to nourish our relationships on the basis of Krishna Katha. That's not just on the basis of preaching. It's not that we just read things from the Bhagavatam which encourage the preaching spirit. But the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita are speaking about multi-dimensional levels of Vaishnava Sangha, Vaishnava culture. And we should be becoming assimilated and aware of that. And becoming aware of that and broaden that and open-minded to all the different facets of Vaishnava lifestyle will actually make our preaching that much more important. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, unless one does Hari Bhajan strictly, they won't be able to convince others of that Hari Bhajan. They won't have the potency to be able to give it to other people. So Hari Bhajan means the association of Vaishnavas in Kali Yuga. It doesn't mean Nirjana Bhajan, where we go and perform it by ourselves. That may be there for a select few very advanced souls. But Bhajan in Kali Yuga means the association of Vaishnavas functioning on the basis of Krishna Katha.
Wonderful, bro. Thank you very much for that guidance.
Anyone else? It's 8:05.
When does this class go till?
8:10 or 8:50.
Maybe we can stop here if there's no more comments. Tim, do you have anything to say? I can't tell.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class and thank you for your association.
Hare Krishna. I can't tell if he was sitting there listening still that whole time or if it was just a picture. But then I realized it was just a picture. Okay, well, thank you all very much. And I look forward to meeting with you all again in 2 weeks. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. His Grace
Hare Krishna.
Devavratha Prabhu ki jai. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jagat Abhishek Pasandu Be Chaudhary Ananta. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.